Good afternoon, Salome. How are you?
Pretty good. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. So did your group talk after we had our meeting?
We have not talked, but we did create our document so we can begin tomorrow.
Okay, good. Where's everybody else? Nobody else is on camera. What's going on? There we go. Zuri, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you? It's been so
I'm-
long since we last saw each other.
I know, huh? Jesus, Kamal, how you doing?
How's it going, Professor?
Hello, Professor.
Hello. Ranjan?
Hey, Professor, real quick. There's like a huge power outage here in LA with Spectrum. So FYI, if I log in and log out and bother you or Joshua, that's the reason.
I'll just remove you permanently if you get too annoying.
Hey, I'm trying to get these extra points at the beginning, like others. So here I am.
Yeah. You know, I can look that up, right? The Spectrum outages, since I have Spectrum.
Please do. Los Angeles, California. It's on Twitter. Till 5:30, and of course it's class. But who cares about class, right? I guess according to them.
Nobody cares. You know, I used to say that. Oh, I got stuck in traffic. I'd tell my wife. She goes, "You know, I can look that up, right?" I miss the good old days when there wasn't technology. You can get away with anything. So when my hello, look at it's a little junior Joshua.
No, I eat it.
Oh, hi, Ethan.
All right, let him go.
So when my one of my kids first got his Apple iPhone, he asked it. He goes, "Where can we hide the bodies?" And the phone answered, "There's a swamp 2.3 miles away from you." So they quickly corrected that one. It was kind of funny. So technologies can be good, can be.
Well, Alexa listens to everything I have to say about everything. So all my devices here.
My Google phone, I have a Google phone, the Pixel, and it eavesdrops on every single thing I say. I get all kinds of advertisements and offers for things I talk about. And they don't even wait a week or 2 weeks. They do it right away. So I have to keep, and my Google Assistant keeps turning themselves on. I have to keep turning it off. So yeah, if you want any privacy, leave your cell phone in the garage or in your car. No such thing as
in the same room as my cell phone anymore, but that's just because I will inevitably end up picking it up and scrolling through Facebook or looking at my email or something.
Exactly.
So it's not really still getting the ads, you know.
I know. I put my my phone in the in another room that I sleep in, and then I'll wake up in the middle of the night and my wife's on the phone. I'm like, "What the hell are you doing?" She goes, "I'm just talking to my aunts in South America." I go, "It's like 3 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the morning there." And she goes, "Yeah, I know. Everybody's up."
Yeah, there's not much of a time difference.
No, there's a lot of time difference. It's like a 3-hour time difference, 4-hour time difference.
Oh, okay.
So
that is a time difference.
Yeah, because she has, at 1 o'clock in the morning, that's a big time difference. 2 o'clock in the morning. So she has relatives in all over Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador, so Argentina.
Hey, Jesus, I had a quick question for you, bro.
What's up?
I don't know if the class isn't started. Oh, I was for Jesus.
Oh, for Jesus.
He works in the counseling office, so I was like, I had a quick question for him. I couldn't text him through like the text and the messages.
Jesus is a counselor? That's kind of scary.
He works in the counseling office, I think, right?
No.
Oh.
I'm a student worker. So if you guys see me, be nice.
Okay.
I'll be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, can
All
we
right.
do like a pass no pass for like the business classes or no?
Say that again.
Can we do the pass no pass thing for business classes or no?
Not for classes that are meeting any of your graduation requirements.
Oh, okay, okay, all right.
So your like your core classes, you can't do pass no pass, nor for your electives or for your School of Business graduation classes. You can do it for like your other requirements,
Yeah.
other classes, but not for School of Business required
Okay.
classes.
Sounds good. Appreciate it. Sorry
Your
about
core
that.
classes.
For this class, you can't do pass no pass.
But you can take an I and make it up. And that would really irritate me. And then I would have to give your final test like super hard, like twice as hard it would normally be. Just ask the guy who did it to me last quarter. All right. So let's see, what do we got going on here? So we got about 90 people. I guess we can get started here. So any questions regarding any of the chapter information, the midterms? We still have a few people who need to get those midterms in. So some points are better than no points. So get your butt in gear and get it done. All right. And anything else? Don't be shy. Any questions about the group project? I've been meeting with groups all week. A lot of them have not exactly done too much yet, which is fine because I can give you some direction and so you don't start off in the wrong way, in the wrong direction. So any questions about that so far? No? All right, let's get into the thick of it then, shall we? All right, so we are at chapter 9, International Strategy. Your book talks about a company called Lincoln Electric, and we'll expand a little bit about that. All right, so Lincoln Electric almost goes bankrupt over international expansion. They didn't really have any kind of a strategy. They just figured they would do what worked for them here in the United States. They would just copy it globally, right? So what they had that worked very well was piecework payment systems. So employees would get paid by the number of pieces they assembled. Year-end bonuses were always a good thing, and guaranteed employment. So they said, hey, we're going to guarantee your employment no matter what. And that was a very good selling point to come and work for them. Okay. So what they didn't know was most countries already had this in place. Their employment laws made it that their incentives plan was obsolete or illegal. So like paying the piecework, they couldn't actually pay the employees per piece. It was illegal in the country, a lot of the countries that they're going in, especially France. They didn't do any type of research on the foreign markets or the business practices or the culture. The pastel would have been a great thing for them to do, right? You know, that is when going into a new country or a new market. Pastel is always a good framework to look at. So the frameworks they could have used, we're going to talk about in this chapter. So obviously they probably did a SWOT analysis. I would at least hope they did at least that. So the opportunities and threats, and then their strengths and weaknesses. So what they thought was a strength of paying of a guaranteed employment actually turned out to be not such a strength, but that was actually the law in that country. So something that they did here in the United States that made them a strong competitor when it came to jobs was didn't mean anything in France. So it was just obsolete. So a pastel analysis of the political, economical, sociological, technological, and legal and environmental would have been a good analysis for them to conduct when they went to go open up a plant there. They would have found out all of these things, especially the political part and the sociological. They would have found out many of these things before they even went, and they would have came up with a new game plan. So the pastel, we've seen this before. I've talked about it before. You're going to see it again, probably on the final. Hint, hint, hint. All of it, not just the PEST, the pest part, but all of it. All right. For those of you who left off for the value chain items. All right. So when I was doing consulting in Turkey, I did a business trip to Turkey. I talked to some companies there. And then here in the United States, I helped out a company and did some consulting for static control to build remanufactured toner cartridges. So when they went to go look into what was going on in Turkey, they asked me to give them some information, do a little research for them, which I did. Your book doesn't talk about the 6D model, but I'm going to talk about it because that's what I used, and it was actually much more. It was much more valuable to look at it in this respect as it is when your book does. Your book really doesn't go into much detail. Unfortunately, when you guys get out of here and get into the real life and work for a large company and somebody says, hey, go give me an examination of what we should do when we go into Turkey or some other country, you're not really going to know what to do because your book is crap. It doesn't tell you, it doesn't give you the frameworks that you really need to do to study this kind of thing. There's far much better resources out there, and the 6D model is one of them. This guy, kind of scary looking, he's Gert Hofstede. He is an intercultural management consulting firm. If you want to find out who, what, where, when, and why in a culture, this is the guy to go to. You can buy a report. What I did is I did an academic report, and then I also bought a report from here. I'm in the private sector, so I had a little bit of money to do that. So that was one of those things. Academically, I don't think our school doesn't subscribe to his organization, so you can't really get it academically. So in the Turkish culture, the 6D model looked at power stance, individualism, masculinity, uncertainty avoidance, pragmatism, and indulgence. And I will further elaborate on those. So questions so far? No. Jesus says, no, I got nothing. No y nada. Okay, so power distance, the dimensions deals with the fact that all individuals and societies are not equal. So if your society looks at you, they have classes, they have castes, they have different levels in the culture, and they score high on this. So they are very split when it comes to, or they kind of split up when it comes to their power stance. So dependent, hierarchical, superiors, often inaccessible. So if you're an assembly worker on the floor, you're not going to be able to go see the boss. I mean, you can see maybe your direct supervisor, but the head of the company, they don't have an open door policy. You just can't go in and say, hi, how you doing? Boss is more of a father figure. Power is centralized and managers rely on their bosses and on their rules. Employees expect to be told what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. Control is expected and attitudes towards manager is very formal. So if you're an assembly worker building toner cartridges, this is your job, this is your section, you're told what to do and how to do it. And that's what you do all day. And they're very, and they're okay with that. Some people here in the United States are okay with that too. Some people in other parts of the country are not okay with that. Okay, so individualism, the degree of interdependence a society maintains among its members, whether its people's self-image is defined in terms of I or we. So Turkey with a score of 37 is a collective society. This means that the we is important. People belong to in-groups, families, clans, organizations. They have a high sense of community. Communication is indirect. Harmony of the group has to be maintained. Open conflicts are avoided. So this is not just in this culture, but many cultures have the same thing. Not in the United States, somebody will get in your face for no reason. So conflict it's a cultural thing, and it depends on the backgrounds and everything. So open conflicts are avoided. Relationships have a moral base, and this always has priority over task fulfillment. Time must be invested initially to establish a relationship of trust. When we did business in Turkey, first of all, everything we did is we had lunch or dinner first before we talked about business. So everything was come on in, have lunch, relax, get to know you, and then we'll stick the screws to you in business. You know, it's like, like when we went to the rug place, it was crazy. They, they had a rug for $25,000. And it's like, and it probably didn't cost them, nearly as much, but so they would try and take advantage of some of the people, some of them they didn't. But if you knew what you were doing, they kind of respected that, which was good. So if you weren't a total clueless person, they respected that kind of relationship. Okay, so relationship of trust. Nepotism may be found more often. So this is my brother, this is my cousin. We're hiring him. He's hired on. So it's a family affair a lot of times. And feedback is always indirect. You're not going to get direct feedback a lot of the times. So that's what they mean by individualism when it comes to culture. Masculinity, a high score. Masculine indicates the society will be driven by competition, achievement, and success. A low score, feminine, on the dimension means that the dominant values in society are caring for others and quality of life. Turkey scores 45, is the feminine side of the scale. So they appreciate the softer sides of the culture, leveling the others' consensus. So they want to know what other people think. Sympathy for the underdog. I mean, even here in the United States, we still, want the underdog to win. Conflicts are avoiding in private and work life. When in my graduate school, when I was doing a couple of group projects, I did an all Chinese group I was placed in, and their culture is very similar to what we were talking about in the Turkish culture. They didn't want any conflicts. They all worked together very well. I did too, and it was like the best group I've ever been in. So a lot of the times it can be a good thing. Sometimes it can be not such a good thing. So leisure time is important. The whole family and friends come together to enjoy life. So that is what they mean by masculine and feminine. Uncertainty avoidance has to do with the way that a society deals with the fact that the future can never be known. Should we try to control the future or just let it happen? Turkey scores 85 on this dimension. Thus, there is a huge need for laws and rules. So basically, they let things happen. Ambiguity brings it with it anxiety. So there can be a lot of anxiety about the future. A lot of businesses don't want to hire employees. They're going to have a lot of anxiety, thinking, is this business going to be here tomorrow when I get here? So that can be a lot of things. When I was there, it was great. When now, not so much. It may not be there. You leave, go home, you come back, and another country can be in there with his people manufacturing weapons or whatever. It's very difficult, especially with countries that have that the politics flip flops all the time. So those things can be, especially in Africa, which is very, very terrible like that. So foreigners might seem religious with the many references to Allah, but often they are just used as traditional social patterns. So it's not always a strict religious type thing. So, it's not always that way. So some people may see it as that way, but it's not. Pragmatism describes how every society has to maintain some links with its own past while dealing with the challenges of the present and future societies. You're seeing a lot of that, the pragmatism here in the United States being, wiped out. Nobody wants to deal with what happened in the past. They want to wipe it out, forget it, and start over. That can be a good thing, and that can also be a very, very bad thing. Turkey score of 46 is the middle of the scale. No dominant culture preference can be inferred. So low scores on this dimension prefer to maintain time-honored traditions and norms while viewing societal change with suspicion. So if you don't want change, this is, the pragmatism is low. If you want change, it's high. Countries like India right now are changing very much when it comes to entrepreneurship. They're starting to encourage and grow entrepreneurship. So they're not so much sticking with the way things used to be. They're kind of changing, which is can be a good thing. Indulgence, my favorite. So when I was in Turkey, I indulged in a lot of chocolate. They had like the best chocolate I've ever had. It was so good. All right. The extent to which people try to control their desires and impulses based on the way they were raised. Intermediate score of 49, a characteristic corresponding to this dimension cannot be determined for Turkey. So relatively weak control and indulgence. Relatively strong control is called restraint. Cultures can therefore be described as indulgent or restrained. With new technology, they are breaking out and embracing their indulgence with new businesses. Like I said, Turkey's starting to be there. India, some of these other countries, is the more industrialized a country gets, and the more, I guess, the more knowledge that they obtain, they become this way. They become a little bit more indulgent. So those are examples that are not in your book. Do you have any questions about those? No, they're not going to be on the final. Good question, though. What else you got? I don't know, Avi, if Pastel will be on there either. So, oh wait, I do know. All right. So this is what your book has. It's called Cultural Distance, the degree and difference between the cultures of two nations. So if there's a large distance, that would be not only cultural, but geographical and whatnot. Even Josh could probably give a better lecture on this than I can, being an anthropologist. So different languages, different ethnicities, different religions, and different social norms. So all of these things, depending on the distance, is different. So for us, between Canada and Mexico, relatively the same cultures, a little bit different. We've, the United States has accepted many different cultures, and many things are the norm. So when you are talking about cultural distances, not just distance, but also what we believe, what we do. Yes, happy Black History Month today, or this month. All right, so administrative distance is degree of distance between the legal and regulatory frameworks of two nations. So absence of colonial ties, absence of shared monetary system, political hostility, government policies, institutional weaknesses. So the colonial ties, they said the sun never stops shining on the British Empire. That is not true anymore, but it was true once upon a time. And the example of that is, the British were all over the globe. Their culture, they embraced many different cultures. Well, they conquered many different cultures too. So the absence of shared monetary system, the euro seems to be a common thing in Europe, not so much in South America or Africa. South America, a lot of the countries use the dollar. So Mexico does not, but we have a trade agreement, and neither does Canada, but we have a trade agreement that is very similar with all of them. So administrative differences is not going to be that much difference. Political hostility, we're not really hostile enemies politically with our neighbors, and government policies seem to be kind of along the same lines. And then the institutional weaknesses and strength also are very similar to what we do with Canada and Mexico. Okay, so obviously geographical distance is a big thing. Physical remoteness, for example, Coca-Cola goes into Africa. Instead of setting up, a big old huge plant to make Coca-Cola, they actually license out their product to a distribution company or a company that's already there, and they know the geographic area, they know the taste, they know everything. So what they do is they give them financial resources and give them the licensing, and Coca-Cola says, here you go. And the distributor is now a Coca-Cola, part of the Coca-Cola company, and they make their Coca-Cola to the taste of the region. So geographical distance and physical remoteness can be a good thing. And then that's another thing is there's no competition. That's it. There's one distributor and they have the monopoly on Coca-Cola. Nobody else can sell Coca-Cola. So lack of common border, lack of sea or river access, size of the country, weak transportation infrastructure, which killed many of the Walmart stores that went into India, Canada, South America, and a weak transportation infrastructure. Okay, difference in climate. You know, obviously, Iceland, which is green, and Greenland, which is icy, is not going to have a lot of the same differences or have the same things in climate similar to the Bahamas, right? So, you know, you're not going to sell a whole lot of snow cones up in Greenland. Okay, so economic difference, the degree of difference between the average income of people in two different countries. The pharmaceutical company is one that capitalizes on this by overcharging consumers in the United States, Canada, other industrialized countries, and then giving a very low price for people who wouldn't normally be able to afford it, who couldn't afford the prices, pay you know, almost nothing for their medications. So that is an example of difference in consumer income, the cost and quality of the products. So natural finance, human resources, which we'll talk about a little bit later, infrastructure, intermediate outputs, information or knowledge. So all of these are economic distance things that, you know, the top 1% here in the United States is, you know, they're the richest, but we have a middle class, which a lot of countries do not. A middle class that can afford to fly to Europe or South America, or, you know, take a vacation to Hawaii. A middle class that can afford, you know, the SUVs, the washer and dryer, and all these other things. Most other countries don't have a middle class, so you're either rich or you're very, very poor, and that's the biggest economic distance. Okay, so foreign direct investment. Direct investments in production or business in one country by a business from another country. So when I was in Turkey, there was a ton of banks, and they were from all over the world. They weren't just the Turkish banks, or, you know, there were banks from all over the world. So the easiest way to get exchange your money is to open up a bank. So these countries that had different banks, so they'd be able to exchange their the monetary the value of their money and exchange it into the Turkish. I forget what the currency was called. Multiple firms that sell or produce in multiple countries, and globalization, which we're going to talk a little bit about more. The spread of business across national borders. Okay, so globalization is everywhere. Multinational firms are specifically in different countries. Strategy and global strategy. I hope you all know what that is by now. Lara, very good. Thank you very much. Global strategy is a goal and set of policies to achieve advantage by leveraging resources, assets, knowledge across geographic markets. Okay. Some of the difference between countries that increase complexity, customer tastes, needs, and income levels. For example, in Africa, a bottle of Coke is, you know, it's ridiculously low. It's like 10, 15 cents, the equivalent. When I went down to South America and Ecuador, I'd buy a Coke, and it was a nickel. Well, actually, it was 15 cents. If I bought the bottle back, it was only 10 cents. So they actually charge you a deposit on the bottle. They used to do that here, but they no longer. I think they just give you a return value. Some states, I still think, give you a deposit, collect a deposit. Government regulations, as we did with our Venezuela exercise, we found out that it's probably not a good thing sometimes to go into a country when the country government is not stable, right? And the regulations, for example, in South America, Heinz ketchup, you can't get Heinz ketchup in South America and Ecuador because the government won't allow them to bring it in or manufacture it there. So instead they have some other ketchup that's just horrible. So legal systems, so each country is a little bit different of what they do and don't do. Public tolerance for foreign firms. There's a lot of countries out there that don't want American firms there. There's a lot of countries out there that don't like other countries and don't want them in their country. Reliability and basic infrastructure. Again, that was a problem that Walmart had in South America and India. They couldn't. There was no roads. There wasn't a basic infrastructure of roads. where they could use the same model that they had here, which is a global model that Walmart does. And that's a perfect example of what a global model is taking something that's already successful and then putting it in somewhere else and doing the same exact thing. And that, maybe changing it a little bit, tweaking it like McDonald's does. But, sometimes it's successful and sometimes it's not. All right. Why firms expand internationally? Why do they expand internationally? So efficiency, managing risk and learning about different cultures, what they can do. They can bring in, like for example, Unilever could bring in go within with one company, and then they can bring several other companies in if they find success. And they can, based on what they're learning and their knowledge of the customers, they can do a crossover with the customers. Okay. So why, when, how, and where is a cage, the cultural distance, administrative distance, geographic distance, and economic distance. So just remember the cage. And then the smaller the distance, the better. Okay. So competing internationally, local responsiveness is firms' adjustment to products, services, and process in order to account for local culture. So the example again is soft drinks. The way Coca-Cola and Pepsi actually go into a new area, they cater the taste to the culture and what the taste of the local people are. Standardization, making products or processes consistent over different units within a firm or across different countries. That's what McDonald's does. Everybody has a Big Mac, even if they have other specialties. They all have a Big Mac because that's what McDonald's is known for. Countries like India, where there's not a lot of meat eaters, they'll have a lot of different vegan options, but they still have the Big Mac unless it becomes very, very offensive, and then they have to remove it. Multi-domestic strategy emphasizes local responsiveness over standardization. The global strategy emphasizes global standardization and economies of scale over local responsiveness. And arbitrage strategy takes advantage of country comparative advantages, source of low-cost labor, and unique resources like skilled workers. So like in Turkey, it was a great location, not only because geographically, because it was a jumping off point into North Africa and all of Europe, but it was centralized, and the skilled labor, there was plenty of skilled labor, and the costs were very, very low. So it made an ideal place to remanufacture toner cartridges, and that's why one of the places why I looked at it. Is arbitrage strategy, the simultaneous buying and selling of securities, currency, or commodities, and taking advantage of lower prices. All right. So competing internationally, so the three C's, the competitive advantage, configuration and coordination. It tells you all about multi-domestic, global, and arbitrage. I can't say that three times real fast. Okay. So this is in your book, and it tells you the scales and what to achieve. So competing internationally, international strategies include responsiveness versus standardization. So if McDonald's was to just go in with their standard menu, they probably wouldn't do too well in a lot of places, right? So their strategies deal directly with the tug of war between local responsiveness and cost reducing standardization differently. So they have, the cost is a lot lower in some places. The standardization of the menu is a lot different. So you can get a Big Mac no matter where, no matter what, pretty much anywhere. But you also have a lot of other things. McCurry pan. I'm kind of curious to have that. That kind of looks kind of good. McRice burger. So, they have a lot of different products. So competing internationally, arbitrage strategy takes advantage of country comparative advantage sorts of low-cost labor on unique resources like skilled workers. So, if you're going into a place and you're going to manufacture, depending on what you want to do, but manufacturing, obviously you want low-cost labor to make your products cheap. When I did a tour of a sock factory in Turkey, it cost 30 cents to make a pair of $10 socks. Okay. And I told you that toner cartridge costs a couple of dollars to make, and they sell it for over $100. So when you get into economic arbitrage, capitalizing on difference in cost, buying where costs are low and selling where prices are high. So when you make a toner cartridge in Turkey and sell it in England, you can get premium dollar for it. When you make a pair of socks in Turkey and sell them, on Rodeo Drive, you can get premium price for them. So capital arbitrage, capitalizing on difference in the cost of capital by acquiring capital where it is less expensive. So buying equipment, doing anything capital cost was a lot cheaper in Turkey than it was in other countries. So which brings us to the Big Mac index. Who has heard of the Big Mac index? Go ahead, raise your hand. Anybody? Anybody know what the Big Mac index is? Or speak up.
The Big Mac index is when the price of the Big Mac is the same all around the world, even if you exchange it into different currencies.
Kind of. It's where the Big Mac actually costs more in certain countries and less in other countries, but it's based on the purchasing power parity. So some economists got together and said that they based it on the purchasing power over the long term. So the purchasing power parity theory states that currency exchange rates should equal the price of a basket of goods. So a loaf of bread in the United States is $3.50. A loaf of bread in Canada is $3. A loaf of bread in Mexico is $1. So, but it's all the same. It's all the same thing. So that would be the purchasing power. So if I spent $4.50 on bread in Mexico, I'd get 4.5 loaves. If I did that here in the United States, I'd get 1 loaf. Okay. So the Big Mac index, this was 2018. So Switzerland, Sweden, USA all had the highest prices. Germany, UK in the middle, and then the Ukraine and Russia had the cheapest Big Macs. So their purchasing parity is a lot lower, and you would think, being an industrialized country, definitely a nuclear power, you would think that they can command more money for a Big Mac, but they don't. So the purchasing parity is a lot lower in those countries. So that was 2018. In 2020, 2 years later, it's pretty much the same. Brazil got a little more expensive, but Africa and Russia, India, all the same. Okay. So cultural arbitrage, capitalizing on differences in culture between countries by actively using the culture of one country as a selling point of products being marketed in another country. So here in the United States, we don't make wooden shoes, right? Those are done by, the northern countries in Europe. So administrative arbitrage, capitalizing on difference in taxes, regulation, laws between countries by operating where they are lower. I have a friend who does taxes, international taxes. He used to go over to Ireland a couple times a year and open up companies. They would just be companies. He worked for Nike for many years. I think he right now is doing something with what's that big company called, Amazon. So he's doing some taxes, helping him with a couple of things on Amazon, but he's a consultant. So he would go over to Ireland and open up companies because the tax rate in Ireland was 12%. In the United States, it used to be 35%. So after you pay whatever the sales tax is, or whatever the tax is in that country, once you bring your money to the United States, you have to pay the difference. So you'd still end up paying 25% tax when you brought your money back home. So the companies never brought their money home. Nike, Apple, still to this day have billions of dollars sitting offshore that they refuse to bring back in the United States because they don't want to pay taxes on. So what they do is they reinvest that money in other countries instead of reinvesting it here in the United States. So this is competing internationally. So if you were to go open up a country or go open up a plant in a country and have to pay the taxes, you know, France is almost 35%, so 34.4. So are you going to open up a plant in France, or are you going to open up a plant in either Great Britain or maybe Ireland? You know, some of the other countries that have a lower tax rate. So those are things, if you ever get asked to do that for a company, you need to look into, you know, things like this. All right. So competing internationally, a company competes only in a few foreign markets. It's an international, multinational competing internationally. Competing globally, a company competes in virtually the entire world's major countries and economies, pursuing a market presence on all continents. So Big Mac is on everywhere, right? Walmart is not, but you know, Unilever has a lot of companies that sell soap to all over the world. So these are big multinational global companies as opposed to competing internationally in only a few countries. All right. So discussion questions due every Friday. That should be no shock to anybody. You still have to turn in your quiz or your paper for the chapter 9 or 10. Excuse me, 9 or 10. And then no class on Monday. It's a holiday. Woohoo! No class. I don't have to wake up early. All right. So Carrefour is a Brazil company. It's family owned, and Super Necessa, which is a family owned company supermarket chain, they bought them out. Okay, so there's, oh, I forgot to do the link again. I'll put the link in a minute. So what kind of alliance is this? Tell me about the 3 C's as it relates to the new relationship. How are they creating value in their alliance, and what changes might they face? I am going to put in a link that shows you where to go. Okay. Make sure I do it correctly. All right, I want everybody to look at the link. Everybody in waiting room. Why did that change? Everybody in meeting. Copy. All right, so I'm going to put you into your groups. And then you'll be able to access the document. And then we will come back. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but I want you to see the differences between global and not global, and how they effectively would be better at doing this than what Walmart or Target would be. Had somebody challenge me on the Target thing, why they weren't successful. I said, because they suck. Target's fine. I like Target. They're okay. Walmart's a lot easier because they have a lot more information. Everybody wants to do something on Walmart because they're the largest retailer in the world. All right. All right, everybody, go to your groups, and then I'll call you back, and then we'll go over a little bit. I want to go over and explain a lot of things that you guys are doing. All right, so there was a lot of information a couple of years ago. Most of the information is in Portuguese, so have fun with that. Did you already assign Kelly?
I was assigned, but then like for some reason, I got kicked from my room and I had to like log back into the Zoom.
Okay, let me put you in a group where Josh is, group 6.
Thank you.
Since Josh doesn't like going to these groups, he says you guys are mean to him.
It's true that I don't like going to the groups, but no one has been so mean.
Justin, are you asleep? I had like 4 people at the end of my class this morning. They were just kind of like not even there.
Yeah.
I had to kick them out. Justin, are you with us?
Oh, there we go.
There we go. All right. So how's everything going? How's the grading?
It's going great. I've caught back up. I'm looking at going through the Nike mini case right now.
Okay.
That's going good. Students are getting the concepts as far as I can tell and using the
Okay.
template pretty much mostly. So
Okay. Yeah, if they're not, let them, tell them, hey, use a template.
yeah,
Um,
I definitely have been.
I let the midterm slide on a lot of things. Some of them are not getting the concepts at all.
Okay.
But if they put down, basically if they follow the format and the outline, I gave them most of the points. So some of them are having some difficulties with the concept. Most of them are getting it, so which is good.
Yeah, I guess I've had to lower my expectations a little bit too with some of it because coming out of the gate, I was being a lot more meticulous, but it's